All right. Everybody, welcome. I can't believe this is episode number 42. For those of you who are fans of science fiction, 42 is a big number. So tonight we have the pleasure of having two people with us tonight from Corsair. We have Lorna, Conrad, and we have Ryan. It's Schemmel, correct? Is that how you pronounce it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to tell everybody how we got here tonight. This is fascinating. So they're with Corsair, which is a wonderful craft distillery down in Kentucky. Many of you know that I was working the Balcones table at Whiskeys of the World earlier in the summer. And towards the end of the night, when you're at a whiskey table, people just come up and just start talking with you. And some guy was talking with me and he said, "What do you have on your shelves? What do you like?" And I started telling him that what my shelves are built like. And then I told him that I had a section that was growing of barrel-aged gins. Okay. And he said, "Barrel-aged gins? Corsair has one." I'm like, "Corsair has one here?" Because when you're working a show, you don't have the opportunity to go around to other tables. So I asked the guy if he could watch the table for a minute. And he watched the table for me. I ran over to Ryan and he was about to have 4 people drink something together. And I said, "I heard that you have a barrel-aged gin. Do me a favor. Let me have some of it." He said, "Sure, here it is." And then he gave it to me. And I said, "Give me your card. This stuff's delicious. I want to have you guys interviewed for my whiskey club." And that's how we got here.
Awesome.
The rest is history. Lorna, Ryan, can you both please tell me what your roles are within the company and where you are calling in from tonight?
Ladies
I'll
first.
start.
Yeah, Lorna,
Thank
why
you.
don't you start? Yeah.
Just a tiny correction. We are in Tennessee. You
Oh.
said Kentucky,
It's
but
okay. I just got 3
but-
people telling me that already. So this group
Not-
corrects me all the time, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. Gail is from Schaumburg.
Yeah.
Oh. You were not completely off. We did start in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So I'll give you a point for that.
Okay.
So my name is Lorna Conrad. I'm head distiller at Corsair. I've been with the company for 6.5 years now. Made it through, got promoted right before the world shut down. So got Corsair up and running again, and we're no longer making hand sanitizer, thank goodness. And just trucking along. We brought on a 3rd facility online in the past month or so, working out the kinks with that. So it's been a little bit crazy, but it's been really fun as well.
Got it. Yeah, because you guys had to start making the hand sanitizer shortly after you joined the company, right?
Well, I had been brewing and distilling prior to that, and they promoted me in February of 2020. And then all of a sudden it was, "Hey, we can't make our product just yet. We need to make hand sanitizer like right now." So literally overnight, we totally changed our business model. We all had to learn how to make hand sanitizer. So it was wild. Wild times at work, but
yeah. Well, we interviewed Margie Lerman from the American Craft Distillers Association, and she told us how early on with COVID, how they were very much involved in getting the word out to people with instructions and how to retrofit and what they needed to do in order to produce hand sanitizer. And it was a huge, it was wonderful what the industry was able to do in that case. So Ryan, tell us where you're calling in from right now and what your role is with the company, please.
Sure. Yeah, Ryan Schemmel. I'm calling in from Dallas, Texas. That's where I reside. I'm on the road most of the time. I'm over sales, but I dabble in a little bit of everything, from planning to compliance, marketing occasionally, and SKU strategy, that sort of thing. And I've been here just over 4 years.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. And how much of the time are you actually on the road? Because I know that you do a lot of the shows and stuff.
It depends on the time of the year, but and pre-COVID, it was a lot more, but 50% about this time of the year. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, listen, I have a number of questions to ask you, but since we do have 4 expressions, and I know there are going to be a lot of questions about the whiskeys, I want to get into this. Okay. And I'm sorry, not just the whiskeys, the spirits. the first two spirits are your American gin and your barrel aged gin. Lorna, can you tell us a little bit about the American gin, the botanicals, how long the botanicals sit in? Tell us a little bit about the process, please. And cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Nice nose.
So with this gin, we're taking a grain neutral base. We're going to run it through our combination of column and pot still, but attached to that column and pot still, we have the vapor basket. A lot of gins are going to be made through maceration inside of the pot. But in this case, we're going to put those botanicals inside that vapor basket, start up the still, and as it vaporizes, it's going to be pushed through those botanicals. So it's going to be a little more delicate, a little bit lighter and brighter. But you know, that's the approach that we wanted to go for. And with this gin, it's, I think, important to us. You know, people get really scared of your grandma's gin kind of thing. Piney, like overly floral, over pine cone, you know, flavoring. And in this case, we took it in a different direction. So what's really important to note, we of course have the juniper in there, our citrus peels, coriander, hyssop. I can always remember all of them, but not when I'm asked. But most importantly, hand sliced cucumber, where we are actually sitting there and we are slicing those cucumbers ourselves. That is going into the vapor basket. And because it's not macerating and getting essentially cooked in that pot, you're going to get that really nice fresh cucumber flavor without being like too intense.
You know, actually, I'm glad you mentioned the cucumber, because the cucumber adds like a brightness to it. You know, it like a cleanliness to it. How long are the botanicals actually, you know, getting infused into the gin?
So it'll be about a 6 to 8 hour run, kind of dependent on the size. But those botanicals are going to get that exposure pretty much once distillation starts through the whole process. And what's interesting about gin too is you'll kind of pull different flavor compounds at different times. So, you know, the beginning of the run might be straight juniper, and then it'll go into this really lovely citrus flavor on the back end. And this is the end result of all those botanicals.
Got it. Ryan, I'm curious, with the gin, how do you like to drink the gin? Do you drink it neat? Do you drink it as a gin and tonic? You know, this gin in particular.
So actually, we just came up, we just finalized all of our formulas for our canned cocktails that we're going to come out with, and gin and tonic is going to be one of those. It is a beautiful gin and tonic. This gin really helps to offset that bitterness of a tonic. But me personally, I like it in cocktails that are very citrus forward. So a basic gimlet or a bee's knees sort of thing. Got it.
Yeah, I always like knowing how the distillers and the people from the distillery themselves drink it. It definitely tells us something about the experience. With respect to this gin, okay, and the barrel aged gin, is it the same? Is it exactly the same gin and then you age it? Is that what's going on here?
It's actually slightly different. We've reduced the botanicals and we actually took the cucumber out. So it's going to be a different recipe, heavier on the juniper, no cucumber, and still has that citrus peel in there as well. It just over time and barrel aging practices realized that cucumber just didn't quite work so well in the barrel. But it ended up, you know, over the years, this product has evolved quite a bit.
What was your involvement? You know, because I know, you know, your description online, it's funny. People have described you as, you know, an artist who found, I forget who wrote this, let's see, that you are an artist who found her medium in spirits. I don't know who wrote that, but that person really can turn a phrase. So
Yeah.
an artist who found her medium in spirits. Can you tell me a little bit about your art background and how that has reflected itself in what we're drinking tonight?
Yeah, so there is definitely the balance of science and art when making spirits. We love to focus on that scientific side of it, but really when it comes down to our product, we're using smaller barrels, smaller format. So we have a variety of sizes, 15 up to 53. But when you're, especially with the barrel-aged gin, we're using that smaller format, and the blending is really where that artistic side comes in, because we're constantly moving product and restocking and pulling barrels. And I really do think that the blending is key to making a good product.
So I'm glad you mentioned the blending process. The gin that we just drank, the American gin, and the barrel-aged gin, which people are now moving on to, are these single barrel expressions, or are you combining many barrels together in order to produce what ultimately ends up in the bottle?
With barrel-aged gin, it will generally be a blend. We're going to be using a variety of barrels, sometimes first use, sometimes third use, which third use is definitely the last time we would be using a barrel. It's a bit of a stretch. But, we want to kind of put in a more complex barrel profile with it. I think that's what makes the barrel-aged gin so cool, is that we have this variety of stock at any given time. And it just really comes down to, okay, like this one has been used a couple of times. It's taking a lot longer to age. Let's see what this fresh barrel has to offer. And so that's where it can get a little tricky as well, finding that right profile.
So what are those? So what can you tell us about those barrels? Because clearly they are imparting a lot to this. I'm getting maple syrup. Somebody just said that they're getting a lot of black tea, and maybe some black pepper from it. What are the, tell us about the barrels. Are they virgin or are they ex-bourbon? What are these?
So the majority of the time we're actually using our spiced rum barrels.
That's the sweetness. Okay.
Yes. So we do offer a spiced rum at Corsair. That is going to have baking spice in there. So cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, lemon peel, orange peel, a little bit of vanilla, and a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of anise, but anise can be a little too aggressive. And then clove. Clove can also be, you have to be very, very careful with those. But we are going to be using those ex-rum barrels, putting that barrel-aged gin in, and it's going to pull all of that flavor in the end.
Got it. Ryan, I want to go back to you for a second. You mentioned that you're going to be producing cocktails. Now, will any of the gin cocktails be using the barrel-aged, or will they just be using the American?
No, we don't have a barrel-aged gin one, but I do want to just briefly go back. Lorna's being a little bit too humble in terms of her work on this product, because prior to her taking over, it was a good product, but since then, just right after she took over, we won Best Mature Gin on the Planet at the World Gin Awards, and then this year we just won double gold at San Francisco International Spirits Competition. So
congratulations.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Her artistic ability is definitely having a positive impact on the overall flavor profile. But to answer your question, no, we will not have a barrel-aged gin cocktail in the canned cocktails.
Okay. And as in terms of the availability, okay, are both of these available around the country, or is it, because a lot of the distilleries that produce barrel-aged gins, they don't produce enough to distribute. They keep it pretty much at the distillery. Can you tell us, Ryan, a little bit about that?
Yeah, these 4 products that we're trying tonight are actually our core products. These are the ones that we really want to focus on. So any state that we launch in, we basically require them to carry all 4 of these flavors. We do have what we call our support line, which is, Lorna mentioned the spiced rum, but we also have vanilla bean vodka. We have a red absinthe. And then we do have a limited time offer every 2 years-ish of Tennessee single malt. That's not smoked. It's similar to the triple smoke, but it's not smoked.
Got it. And I'm going to ask you the same question again that I asked you before. With the barrel aged gin, how do you like to drink it, Ryan?
This is an easy one. I only drink it 2 ways, either neat or in an old fashioned. And I know that sounds kind of weird to have a gin old fashioned, but the flavor profile just goes perfect with that cocktail. Lorna, how about you? Because I want to ask you this question, and then I have a quick little story for both of you. Lorna, how do you like to drink this?
So for the longest time, I did really enjoy this as a mule, substituting out the vodka, especially midsummer. I work in a very hot distillery, and I love to have a Moscow mule, in this case, a barrel-aged mule. But the cocktail that we've brought back a couple of summer seasons now, we always do a seasonal cocktail menu. It is one of my all-time favorites, Fire and Watermelon. It's got watermelon juice, habanero bitters, sometimes they'll put like a smoked cedar stick in there if they're feeling fancy. I mean, it's a great.
What is this called?
Cocktail.
What is that called?
It's a Corsair original, but Fire and Watermelon.
Is that on your website?
I don't think it'll be on the website just because it's a seasonal offering, but I can share.
No, the recipe though. The recipe.
I could probably squeeze some information out of our bar manager.
That'd be interesting.
To share.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Somebody, actually, Paul Barron, who's a big fan of Corsair. Just curious, who came up with that combination of the heat plus the watermelon?
That is our bar manager, Joe. He is incredible with just. He'll call me or text me the next day and be like, I was thinking of ways to do X, Y, and Z with all these spirits. I'm just like, your mind works very differently. I'm a neat spirit drinker. I always appreciate a cocktail from him though, because he's so good at it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. So the really quick story I'm going to tell you is that earlier in the summer, I was in Northern California and I visited Mendocino Spirits. Mendocino Spirits is the first place that introduced this group to barrel-aged gins. And they have a 5-year limousine oak gin. It's almost $200 a bottle.
Wow.
Well, they're a small place, very crafty.
That's amazing.
We went out to dinner. Okay, so I went out to dinner with Jack and Tamar, the owners, to a steakhouse afterwards that carries their spirits. And Jack told us, there were a few of us there, that he wanted us to enjoy his gin the way he enjoys it. Okay, now bear in mind, again, this is almost $200. He talks to the waitress and he says, you know that expensive bottle of gin up there that you have? And she said, yes. And he said, that's mine. Okay. How much would you guys charge for a gin and tonic? Okay. She said, $50 a cocktail. Right. He said, I'm buying a round for the table. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Jack Crispin Kane bought $50 gin and tonics for all 5 of us around the table. And I got to tell you, it was freaking amazing. But I would never myself have thought to do that, especially with something so expensive, which is why, Ryan, I've been asking you how you drink it, and why, Lorna, I've been asking you how you drink it, because I think that those of us on this side of the table learn a lot, from people like you, as to how you enjoy different types of spirits, because there's no right or wrong. I would never have thought to mix that expensive gin in a gin and tonic with and with a lime. It was a gin and tonic with a lime.
Yeah.
It was delicious, but I would never have done that myself. It's shocking. Yeah. So, by the way, we're getting really good comments on this stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about the price points on these? What are the average prices that we would see for the American gin and the barrel gin?
Yeah, so it's going to range across the country. Obviously, different states have different state taxes and freights and all that stuff get in there. But in general, we like to see our American gin around the $30 price point. So $29.99 is the target. And then the barrel aged gin is a little bit above that, probably $34.99 to $37.99.
That's a freaking bargain. Okay, that is a huge bargain if you ask me. By the way, one thing about the barrel aged gins that many of us have discussed is that whiskey drinkers who don't necessarily like gin, they end up liking barrel aged gins because again of the woodsiness, which is what they're used to from whiskey, which is nice.
For sure.
So Lorna, let's move on to whiskey. Okay, let's move on to whiskey. So what we have here now are two different whiskeys. We have the Corsair Dark Rye and the Corsair Triple Smoke. Let's start, of course, with the dark rye. Can you tell us, first of all, what it means to be a dark rye? I have, for everybody here, just so that you know, the mash bill. I got this from your website. I'm going to put it in the comments right now. The mash bill is 61% malted rye, 4% chocolate rye, and let's see, and 35% malted barley. Okay, malted barley. Can you tell us a little bit about why you call this a dark rye and how this mash bill was created?
So this is one of the OG recipes that Corsair has had forever, and I'd say it's evolved ever so slightly, but not by much. It ain't broke, so we're not fixing it. It's doing it. It's doing its job. So
this
in
predates
this case,
you. This predates you at the distillery. Okay.
Yes, I cannot lay claim to this wonderful whiskey. It is one of my favorites that we offer. But in this case, that dark rye, it's that malted chocolate. When I'm cooking it, and to also preface all this, we're using a beer brewing system. So we are lautering and separating that grain off, giving that grain to farmers. And we're just doing the wort. So unlike a bourbon where they do on grain, we are doing off grain fermentation. When we are mashing, this wort is like dark brown. And that all comes from that malted chocolate rye, giving it so much color. So really kind of how the name came to be. It was originally Rhymageddon.
Great, Michael Bloom. Okay, so Michael Bloom, he's the one who you get the points. I think it was Michael Bloom who said that this was Rhymageddon originally, right? For
the longtime fans, we actually lowered the proof from 92 to 85, kind of taking the edge off. I think some of those batches could get a little aggressive, but 85 being a little more approachable, I think, for most people that are drinking a rye. But this product, I think, is just unique and beautiful. It's a pain in the ass to make, pardon my French. Rye is so tricky to work with, especially when we take it to the next level and separate off from the grain.
Well, it can clog because of sugars, right? The sugars, you can things get clogged up, right?
It's the beta glucans in the rye. They basically just go up and become a giant dough ball if you stir too much. So anytime I'm training, it is like, don't stir. If you are mashing in, just let it do its thing. You can give it like a little spread in the mash tun, but don't stir. So I've cried over this product many times, but I think that's why I love it so much, is that in the end, I think it's all worth it. I could drink this all day, every day. Okay. It's generally my go-to if I'm sipping at home or at Corsair.
So tell me about okay, so you have malted barley in here, and you have malted rye, and you have malted chocolate rye. Are you doing the malting yourselves, or are you getting the malted grain from elsewhere?
No. So we'll use different suppliers, BSG being our main grain supplier. But it comes to us pre-malted already. We have malted things in the past, but not for this product. Okay.
And so Josh Eisenberg said, why is this so much smoother than other ryes? And I would think that that's probably because of the malted barley, right? That's the malted barley is what makes it more smooth, right?
Yeah, and just since every grain in here is malted, it really takes that grassy green pepperiness and really kind of rounds it out. Just, I think overall makes it so smooth. Sometimes I'll taste a barrel, it's like brownie batter and dry cocoa, and just, it's such a great product.
Yeah, can you imagine pouring this onto
Insane to
Cocoa
know.
Puffs? You know what?
I mean, you definitely could, if that's what you're into. I mean,
Yeah, you know, avoid the hangover. Keep drinking.
yeah.
So actually, you got a really big compliment here. My friend Brian, I was joking around before that I didn't think he would like anything tonight because I know Brian's flavor profile preferences, and he actually said, let's. I want to get it exactly right here. He said, "I don't hate this," which is saying something for a rye. You know. So that's
Thank
Gil,
you.
it's, honestly, every time I do a show, you know, you always have those folks that come up and say, "Oh, I don't like rye whiskey," and because we're malting all of that rye, it takes so much of that grass note out of it, and just makes it a much rounder whiskey. And rye haters out there love this whiskey.
yeah. No, this is delicious. By the way, how much does a bottle of this go for? What's the range on this?
Actually, for you guys in Illinois, you're probably the country low. So you're probably around $39.99.
I mean, you just said two things there that shocked me. One, that would
But
be
maybe
low in anything.
$44.99 if your retailer is trying to gouge you.
Wonderful. And Lorna, tell me about the aging process. And what is this aged and for how long?
So in this, it's also going to be a variety of age, for barrel sizes, typically in the 15-gallon and 30-gallon range. We've used Kelvin Cooperage and Barrel Mill predominantly as far as a barrel supplier. But again, it's the smaller barrel size that allows us, since day one, we've never sourced anything, and we're able to age a little bit faster than your average whiskey. But again, that really, really comes down to blending being one of the key aspects with this product. 15-gallon barrels.
What would you say is the average age in this?
Generally about a year is pretty standard.
Wow.
You know, we'll have stuff up to a year and a half. But we try not to do anything less than a year. It kind of depends. You know, we had an incredibly hot summer this year. I felt like we had a heat wave for about a month. And that really, really, really accelerates the aging process. So we have to be very careful as far as that goes. And we don't climate control our barrel room. So it's going to feel every degree when it's 100 plus outside to 15. I think I've felt in there before. Very, very cold days. So yeah, that's just like a big aspect of it, is really coming down to the blending. And our barrel room manager, Adrian, is so on top of it. I'm always impressed when he's like, well, yeah, we have about 20 of these that are aging and we need to pull this and sample at least 5 today. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great to me.
Nice.
So
no, it's good to have. I mean, that's a great amount of knowledge there. I'm curious, given the heat and the size of the barrels we're using, what's the oldest whiskey that Corsair produces or has produced? I'm really curious about that, because we're dealing here with primarily younger spirits. You know, let's talk a little bit about, you know, the longer end of it, and you know, your experience with that, and the distillery's experience with that.
I mean, gosh, we have some things, you know, for us, anything over 2 years is a long time, which I know in the whiskey world is like, what do you mean 2? But like, you taste the product and you see it's age is but a number. But
oh well, as you can, I will agree with you on that. My gray beard totally agrees with
you. We've had, you know, we've been around before. You had to put an age statement on bottles, which is unfortunate for us sometimes, because we've had stuff sit in barrels, especially the 30 gallons up to the 53s. It can be, you know, 2, 3, 4 years old. But we, you know, generally are sticking to that 1 year to 2 year mark.
And tell
So,
me about
Bill,
the angel share.
Bill,
We
I
got a
have a
question about angel share, Ryan. There, how much are you losing every year to evaporation?
It's quite a bit, which is also unfortunate um, because of our climate, but we're generally losing 6%
Okay.
for most barrels.
No, that's fine. I mean,
It-
we've talked with people about, M&H in Israel, they get a higher angel share. Obviously Belcones and Waco, they get a much higher angel
oh
share.
my God, yeah.
We've talked to people in India, Amrut, it's, even Starward, so we understand that, and many people
Yeah.
here appreciate the younger whiskeys if they're made correctly. Ryan, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say I have a different perspective on the age of some of the stuff in the warehouse. As a sales guy, I'm always looking for single barrels or some special offering, and we have a maddeningly crazy number of older barrels out there that I'm not allowed to sell. So.
Wow.
I get what Lorna's talking about. She's talking about making dark rye and triple smoke where you're blending stuff together, and a lot of that stuff gets used up pretty quick. But we have a 53 of triple smoke out there that's like 4.5 years old, and it's in some ex-bourbon barrels. So, and then we have a bunch of apple brandy. We have some bourbon that we're not allowed to touch. So there's stuff out there, but my hand.
Who knows when it'll.
That that must drive you crazy. I can see that must drive you crazy sometimes when
for sure.
What are they waiting for? Are these reserved for particular projects, or are they just waiting?
So, like just for example, the apple brandy was made for our 10-year anniversary, and that never happened. It was going to be a special release, and it's just not something that is. I guess in line with the brand kind of identity, and it's not something that we're going to continue to make. So over the past 4 years, we've been really focusing on that core set of products and our support set of products instead of launching new stuff. Because when I came over, we actually had 26 active SKUs, and it was a nightmare to manage. So little things like these, the apple brandies or other one-offs. We've just decided to hold on to them for a minute. It might change in the future. You never know.
Okay.
But if you want to buy a barrel of brandy, let me know.
We have actually, this group has done one single barrel. We did it with Starward. It actually also won double gold at that same competition, by the way, that particular barrel.
Nice.
I will tell you that it
That's
has
amazing.
been facilitated by the fact that the ambassador for Starward lives a mile away from my house. It makes life easier with
I
working
love
with Jake.
Starward.
Yeah, Starward's great. So we've done that. We're going to be doing another one with them, and then we're going to figure out going forward how we want to handle single barrels. So I know that there are people here who are big fans of your stuff. And speaking of things that people are big fans of, the next whiskey is, I have to say, it is very polarizing. Some people love this stuff, and other people. I mean, Brian, you probably should just take a whiff of it and then just close the bottle back and give it to me, because this is just not your style. Triple smoke. This is a very famous line, the triple smoke line. This is an American single malt, correct? Okay.
Yes, correct.
So tell us, please, about the grain, and then please tell us why it's called triple smoke. I know about the three sources, but I want you to talk about them, please.
Yeah. So we, again, predates me. We have not I shouldn't say we haven't messed with the recipe. We have tweaked it slightly. But it is 3 types of malted barley: peat, beechwood, and cherrywood smoked malt. We've got beechwood from Germany, peat from Scotland, and cherrywood from Wisconsin.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? You said that all pretty quickly. I want you to repeat that because we have some geeks here who really get into this stuff. Please repeat for me again what you just said, because people are saying, wait, she's talking too quickly. Let's hear it again.
Sorry.
I got some private messages.
So 3 types of smoked malts. The peat is going to come from Scotland. The beechwood is going to come from Germany, and the cherry wood is going to come from Wisconsin.
Okay.
So
And then the smoking process then is,
these are going to be malted in their respective places and smoked in their respective places.
got it.
At the time when we were starting to make this product, we were one of the only distilleries trying to work with these smoked malts, so much so that the cherry wood coming from Brice, they were like, we can't fulfill this size order. We're going to do it for you, but we're going to take our time because we can't. Beechwood was one of the only smokes you could source at the time. And they were able to blend that in and make it work. And now I think it's crucial to the recipe. Obviously, it's gives it kind of that body to the smoke. And then peat, naturally, Scotland. Derek has studied in Scotland and he loves Scotch. He didn't quite want to make the Islay Scotch profile. He wanted to make it something that is reminiscent of a Scotch while also bringing in that American aspect with the cherrywood, because it gives this kind of barbecue heat aspect to it. I think overall that's what makes this product so awesome, is that while I love Scotch and I am not married to a particular region in Scotland, it's reminiscent of those Scotches, but then has this unique twist on it that really draws people in and makes them love it, I think.
And this is aged in, did you say, was it ex-bourbon barrels you said? What is this aged in?
No, that was a single barrel.
That was a single barrel. Okay.
Single
so
barrel.
what is triple smoke then ultimately aged in?
It's always going to be starting in a virgin white oak barrel,
Okay.
just like the rye. Variety of sizes there as well. But we have played around with some finishings on this. We've done Oloroso Sherry, which was one of my all-time favorites. Short-lived, unfortunately. Cognac. We've done a few different iterations, but it's somehow always stood up there. I'll submit it. Each batch is going to be a little bit different, and I'll submit it to a competition, and it does well every time. So,
no, it's great stuff. I mean, we're getting really good comments. People like it. People who don't even like smoky stuff that much like it. I do have a funny question for you, and Ryan, you might be better to answer this. After you guys age this stuff, where do those barrels go? Because a lot of times, when you have a barrel that's had smoked stuff in it, other craft producers like getting their hands on that barrel.
Yeah.
I assume that those barrels are marketable as a sales guy, right?
They are.
Yeah.
We get a lot of requests from them from breweries, to age different beers. We've aged cigars in them.
Wow.
You name it, somebody's going to want to use it for something.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
Hot
chocolate.
sauce. Everything.
Wow. Now, that's incrable. I love it.
But you're right. We do use them as giveaways. We're about to do I guess it's probably not going to give it away too bad unless somebody's in the Blind Barrel Club. So we're going to do a giveaway of a barrel through them and one on Dad Street Bourbon as well. But yeah, anybody that wants one from a marketing perspective can have one. If you would like one shipped up, we're happy to do that.
Michael Bloom, are you listening?
But we also sell them on our website for furniture and whatnot.
That's fascinating. I love it. That's great. So listen, we have many questions that are going to be coming here. I have a million other questions that I can ask you guys too, but I want to open it up to the group here. So everybody, you know the drill. If you have a question, please use in the reactions tab. There's the raise hand function. we know who's always first, and Mr. Ariel Eisenberg. And I know other people are going to have questions. Please use the raise hand. And if you don't have the questions, I have other questions too. Ariel Eisenberg, please unmute yourself. And if you want to direct the question to either Ryan or Lorna, if you think is better for that, please do so.
Ryan and Lorna, I'd like to direct a question to one of you two. I have so many questions, but I will limit myself for the sake of brevity. For the triple smoke, what kind of ratios are you looking at? Are you looking at a 1-to-1-to-1?
Yeah, it's equal parts as far as that recipe goes. The only thing that's slightly bigger is the cherry wood, and it's only because they come in 50-pound bags versus 55. But we're talking like minuscule difference. But yeah, so it's about 850 pounds of barley per brew, but it's going to be 3 equal parts.
Awesome. And my one other question, just because any barrel aged gin that I've encountered in the past has always been bourbon barrel aged. So how common is it, or is it becoming more common for distilleries to use other types of casks and other barrels in addition to ex-bourbon?
Yeah, I think it's just really come down to how does that gin pair well. I tried a mezcal barrel aged gin just about a couple months ago, and it was amazing because of course it brings in this whole other aspect of mezcal, and it was beautiful. I think it just kind of, in the craft world, it's like, what can we get our hands on, and how is this flavor profile going to work out? And I will be totally honest, not everything is a winner. So for every bottle you see out there, there's probably a few barrels that are just didn't quite make the cut. So it's really coming down to what you can source, and why not put it in there and try it out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Michael Bloom, before we go to you, I made a mistake. I cannot believe that I did not ask Eric Leader what questions he has before I went onto the group. Okay, Eric, I apologize profusely, and I know that you have questions. So please ask your questions, and I apologize, my friend.
No problem. Couple things. Since we don't really touch on gin too often, how, like, for the junipers or the other botanicals, do you crush them? Do you get them as small as possible, or because you said like it's a 6-hour steeping process, are they left whole or larger chunks to span the time of the steep?
Yeah, so we're actually not steeping in this process. I have done some steeped gins before, but as far as this gin, since it's running through the vapor basket, we're just going to do a light crush on the juniper. I don't want to pulverize it, just because the juniper can really draw some more aggressive oils if it's way over crushed and pulverized. So in our case, we have a hand mill, and we give it one good little crush, make sure it's exposed, and then we'll combine that in with the botanicals. We'll also grind up some coriander in there, and again, a light crush on the cardamom just to kind of break it open and expose it. But other than that, it's, the dried citrus peel and the hyssop, and a couple of angelica and orris root, and then the fresh cucumber.
Which you said you sliced thin.
Yeah, we have a mandolin, so I want it to have nice, even slices. I'm very particular. We'll actually even peel a little bit of the skin on the outside as well, just because sometimes that can give it this overcooked vegetal flavor if we aren't careful when we're running the still and preparing it.
Probably a lot more bitter notes.
Yeah.
The other question I had, so you were mentioning on the dark rye that it kind of varies per batch with the rye. How from the mash, how different does that become after you're done with the distillate? I mean, are each barrel vastly different that you need to blend together, or do they all kind of like even themselves out over the aging process?
Yeah, I think the big thing with barrels, again, like our climate, it can sometimes be a battle because it can really kind of drive that alcohol out of the barrel. But most barrels, I mean, across the board, you're going to get a lot of consistencies. But again, you're working with oak, and each tree, I mean, we could get into the really nitty gritty of where the oak is grown and that climate that it's in, and was it a good year or a bad year for growing oak? You know, we can get very technical in that aspect, but each barrel is going to be consistent. But you're going to taste a certain barrel and say, like, it's from this batch, but it's not ready. It could have been sitting in one portion of the warehouse and it just needed a little more time. Or you find a barrel that's exceptional and you're like, this needs to be a single barrel or whatever. So that's the difficult but also really rewarding part of the blending, is just you don't know what you're going to get sometimes, and it's really fun to play with that.
It's awesome. Great. Eric,
Yeah.
any more questions?
Nope, that's it.
Lorna, your last statement was a great segue into our next person who has a question for you, Michael Bloom. I want to prepare you for this. Michael Bloom is the brains and the creative mind behind the 50 State Blend. If you did not know that already, he and Eric actually are both working with Dave Sweet now. They came out with a Rivalry blend. So Michael knows more about blending than most of the people on here. And so I just want to give you that little heads up. Yes, I was going to give you a heads up here.
Me.
Not necessarily, but you will be speaking the same language. Michael Bloom, take it away.
Thanks, Gil. That's very kind of you. And I wanted to thank Lorna and Ryan for representing Corsair, which for years I've always thought of as the big, bold experimenter in the American whiskey world. And that actually is the root of my question. Tonight, we got to taste the gin that you obviously have a lot to do with, but you're a master distiller at a big, bold place called Corsair. So I wanted to ask you, what are your playful experiments that you are currently running that go beyond the core range? Do you still have that component to Corsair that so many of us know Corsair for? Because I'd like to hear what you have brewing and what excites you about experimentation with American spirit.
Yeah, it's Ryan had already mentioned he came on when we had about 26 SKUs on the ground, and it was, really exciting and really fun. We did kind of do a little bit of rearranging with our brand, and that is not to say we are not going to make something crazy ever again. I've kind of been doing my own set of experimenting. We've been working on some new single malt iterations. That's really important to us as far as expanding the American single malt category, which the TTB is very close to approving. We are very excited about that. But yeah, something that has really fascinated me for a few years. I've gotten my hands on some Kernza as far as an alternative grain. And I've been kind of playing around and seeing how that might potentially
Lorna,
go.
what was that word? Lorna, what was that word? I want to make sure that I got that right here.
Kernza.
Kernza. Okay.
Yes.
Whereas Michael Bloom and Paul Barrington, a few other people here might know what that is. What is
Institute?
Kernza?
Yes. It's a more sustainable grain as far as its growing practices. So that to me was already an important aspect, given, our the climate at the moment has not been very friendly to barley, along with a few other things. So, you know, I wanted to kind of see how that might work in a product and see flavor profile wise. And of course, naturally, it's because it's not a very popular grain, it's been a little hard to source and get a hold of, but something that I'm hoping
Got it.
to.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt while you were answering Michael's question, but you said a word and I got, you know, I saw people
Yeah.
reacting like, what did she just say?
Yeah. What
I don't think any of us knew what that grain was, Gil. I don't either. Is it
Yeah.
similar to anything we do know, Lorna?
It'll be like a wheat. And some breweries have put some things out. And of course I was like, oh, they beat me to it. But it's something that I'm hoping to kind of be able to debut at some point. But, you know, other than that, it's always just down to, you know, what new and interesting grains are out there. And that's what we're known for. You know, we've have malted things in the past, but we've also smoked our own grains. So of course I'm always itching to kind of fire up the smoker, do some kind of experimenting with that, without taking away from triple smoke and all of its glory. But yeah, so just a few things down the line, and not everything that I can totally talk about, but you know, just really we just mostly wanted to rein in our core lineup, do the rebranding, do this whole push, and then we'll do some kind of one-off things and gift shop exclusives and things like that. So
Awesome. Thanks for your answer.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's go on to Daniel Pikus, and then after Daniel, we will have Ariel Tesher. Daniel, please unmute.
Just a quick question on the triple smoke. What type of char is on that barrel?
Typically 3. We have messed around with char levels. This 3 has just always been consistently good. Bourbon does a lot of char 4, and it's just too aggressive for this product.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So actually, Ariel Tesher just messaged me that his question's been answered. I have a question for you about the 4 Kings. Okay,
Yes.
so Paul Letko, he is local to us here in Chicagoland. He's a good friend, great guy.
Yeah.
Brett Pontani from Binny's. We all know Brett, and we learned here how the 4 Kings got created essentially in the back of Delilah's after Whiskey Fest one year, that they all just, you know, came together and had a fun little brainstorming. And supposedly, as legend has it, when Hletko and the guys were talking about it, Brett said, if you guys do this, I will buy every bottle. Okay. Now, of course, it violated some rules, but that was the spirit behind it. So, Ryan, actually, I'm going to go to you because you're the sales guy. Can you tell us a little bit about the 4 Kings, how it's received in the marketplace, and you know, how it gets, how really it comes up every year?
So I can only speak to it anecdotally because we actually don't have any touch on the sales of that product. We ship in barrels of product, and then they blend it up there. So
how do you decide what product to send?
Sell it.
Okay, how about, okay, so let me ask you this question. Every year, what barrels of product are decided to send? How is that decided, what you're going to be sending? Like a rye, a single malt, you know, what do you send each year?
I think that's a Lorna question. Sorry, Lorna.
No worries.
No, that's okay. No, generally it's going to come down to, you know, the different finishings that we want to do on it. You know, and I also cannot say I have like full control in this aspect. They're generally pitching out the idea of, hey, we'd love to get something smoky. We'd love to get just a malt product. We'd love to get something with rye in it. And we all kind of peer into our warehouses and say, well, this barrel would probably fit the profile, which has its challenges as well, because we've got the 4 different aspects coming together. So it really just kind of depends on, you know, this year we want to release, I think this past year was cognac finished. So what would fit into that profile from Corsair? So that's generally how that goes.
Who ultimately makes the decisions on each year with this?
I believe it's coming down to Few and Paul.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious as to how that's done, because every year's version is a little bit different, but they're always good, you know, so you know, it's an interesting process. Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about the cans, your mini cans? Because I love the fact that your spirits are available in the mini can format, and I just actually posted an article about it in the comments here. These are 100 milliliters mini cans. What are they? What spirits are available in the mini cans?
So our core 4 items will be available in the mini cans. So triple smoke, American single malt whiskey, the dark rye, the American gin, and the barrel gin. This actually came up, you know, Lorna was talking earlier about hand sanitizer, and you know, I had the joy of selling that, but I also had the joy of thinking, how the hell do I taste buyers on our product without leaving an entire bottle at a bar, restaurant, liquor store, hotel, etc. And I said, I've really got to have a sample size, like a mini. And so we started working on it at early days of the pandemic, and we didn't want to just do your standard airplane bottle. That's not us. So we said, what else can we put this and it's full test spirit. It's not a cocktail, which is a little confusing to the customer. They see these and they assume that it's a slow and low, you know, rock and rye or something like that. But we said, what interesting vessel can we put these in? And this is what we came up with. So it's 100 ml of the full test spirit. Yeah.
And where are they available?
So they're not available in Chicago. So in Chicago, I guess you have a law that says you can't sell anything under a 200 ml. Now, we're trying to solve this with our distributor, BC Merchant, because we have some hotels that would love to have it up there. So I think we're going to come out with a 4-pack box for the Chicagoland area. Now, you can sell 100 mLs in downstate, anywhere basically out of city center.
Got it.
But it's in all of our major markets, and it's a great travel vehicle for customers. Yeah.
You know, when it's funny, I have a vested interest in asking that question, because there's a swimming pool that I go to where you're not allowed to have glass for obvious reasons, most swimming pools, and I would love the ability to have whiskey in a can.
Well, you can buy them on our website, and we do ship to Chicago. So there you go.
Okay. There we go. Brian, I think we're going to have to stock those up in the refrigerators at the cabanas at the pool. That's awesome. And then, so tell us then about these, the cocktails you have coming out. When are those cocktails coming out, Ryan?
So we're shooting for Q1 of next year. We're completely done on all the formulation. That was a very long process. We're done with the package design. So we know what it's going to look like. We know what the products are. We know what there you go. And it's a little bit small, but so we've got a Ryan cola. That's going to be a craft cola with our dark rye. We've got a pineapple daiquiri. That's going to be made with our spiced rum. The creamsicle is made with our vanilla bean vodka and a blood orange liqueur. The gin and tonic is pretty self-explanatory. The rye old fashioned spritz is an old fashioned. And these are kind of big cans. They're 250 ml. So to have that big of a volume of old fashioned seemed a little excessive. So we did add some carbonation to it. And then our last one there is the penicillin. That's made with triple smoke. And it's a classic penicillin.
Okay. So these will be available. Good. These will be available in Chicago?
Yes. And they're all
I can guarantee
very boozy, 14 to 18% alcohol.
I can guarantee you that my refrigerator at the pool is going to be full of these next summer.
Yes,
There is no
awesome.
doubt that these will be in the refrigerator at my pool next summer. There's no doubt about that. No, that's great. I have another question about a whiskey that we didn't taste tonight. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit, Lorna, about the single malt that's not smoked that you produce?
Yeah. So something that is really cool about the single malt is we malted the majority of the batches that we put out. We were malting that grain ourselves, which is just not normal for a craft distillery. That when I first came on, they were in the process with that malt house and doing the whole shebang, which is just incredible. So that to me is right off the bat what makes it really interesting and different. That's another product that we wanted to have in the single malt category. It's always been important to us. And like I said before, the TTB is working on making it an official standard of identity.
Right. We've seen the articles about that. And actually, Michael Bloom is holding up a bottle of that right now, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, nice.
So in this case, we malted it ourselves and then brought it from the malt house because there's Derek has a family farm. So he was out there, he built the malt house, the smokers out there as well. We'd bring that back into Nashville, we'd cook it and then age it. And so we were really doing that grain to glass kind of concept, wanting to really put our own mark on it. I have a barrel of single malt that is hiding in my house. It's long gone. And every time, if we have people over, I'm like, don't open that bottle. I swear to God. So
love it.
Yeah. So I don't know when
awesome.
I'll open it, but it was such a good batch. It was really
Got
good.
it.
Well,
listen.
luckily, Illinois still has, DC Merchants, our distributor there, still has some bottles of that Tennessee single malt release from, what was it, 2 years ago now, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the one that is Caribbean rum cask finished. So
oh, nice. So it has that sweetness to it.
Illinois is literally the only place you can still find that product.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know which retailers still have it?
Well, it's in Benny's system, and I saw it in the last Benny's that I was in. So even if they don't have it on the shelf, you can tell them to bring it in for you.
Yeah, that happens with Benny's a lot because sometimes they don't put stuff on the website because they want to keep it for the walk-in customer. All right, so we've been on now for an hour because we got started a little bit late. What I want to do is this. I'd like everybody to please unmute, and if you are so inclined, pour yourself another dram. I am pouring for myself another dram of the dark rye. God, I love the chocolate aspects of this. And I'd like everybody to join me in saying cheers and thank you very much to Lorna and Ryan.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
So I'm going to go back to Lorna and Ryan. Everybody, if you could just keep it quiet for a minute. Lorna, do you have any final words? And then we'll bring it back to Ryan for any final words from him too. Lorna?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I still think of myself as fairly new into the whiskey world, only 6.5 years in, but I've been with Corsair this whole time and they've taught me everything and it's been amazing. They have really supported me and helped me grow. So I love doing this kind of stuff because I get to share my knowledge and passion for this amazing product that I make.
It's a wonderful place to get started. It's just fascinating. And I can only imagine with all the excitement going on there. And I just want to remind you also, before we go into Ryan, that when we finish this officially, we turn off the recording, we do go to a little bit of an after party. So please hang out for a little bit if you're able to do so. Ryan, coming back to you, is there anything that you would like to add, anything you'd like to say to the group?
Just a big thanks for allowing us the time to come on and chat with you. Hopefully we can do it again, maybe with some LTO products or some stuff that isn't out there in the market anywhere. So big thank
yeah,
you
twist
guys.
my arm. Twist my arm on that one, Ryan. Okay, yeah, virtually twist my arm. That's right. Yeah,
But
that'd be great.
The only other thing besides a big thank you is, go out to our website. You can find single barrels out there that aren't available anywhere else.
Yeah.
You can find mini cans. And then next time you guys are in Nashville, anybody on the call, hit us up. Come by for a
Let
tour.
us know.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, anybody here who wants to get in touch with Lorna or Ryan directly, just send an email to Eric or me, and we will get you in touch. Eric, do you have any final comments or anything you want to say here?
No, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. It's very fun to branch out into some gins in addition to the whiskeys and ryes. And then if everybody wants to hang on for a sec after I stop the recording, I have one other thing to mention.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, a little Easter egg there. All right, Ryan, Lorna, thank you so much. Really, this has been absolutely wonderful.